Warning: World Weary Podcast occasionally discusses mature themes and uses colorful language.
Welcome to World Weary Podcast. I'm the American one, Cassiopeia Walker.
And I'm the British one, Violet Starr.
So, dramatically, okay, here we go. Do you have anything, Violet, that you want to tell me?
No.
Before I start my script. I wanted to do that really dramatically to see how you'd react.
Oh, yeah, I felt like I was being accused for a second. We had a great night the other night. We had a movie night, just a really chill movie night, and we ate our body weight in popcorn.
It was pretty good.
We watched a really scary, horror anthology.
What was it called?
XX, I think.
Yeah.
2 X's.
Yeah. Not 3.
No. No.
Be careful Googling that. XX film. That's not going to help you. XX horror film.
Yeah, it's on Netflix, and we saw some really scary stuff. There was a banshee kind of creature in one of them. It was good.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
And then we ended up watching your favourite movie.
It's not my favorite movie. It's a movie from my childhood.
With what, Val Kilmer?
Val Kilmer. He has a special place in my heart. Top secret. I was reminded because Red Letter Media did a video, a review of it, and I was like, oh my god, I used to watch that all the time. So I was like, introducing them to the dad humor of the Midwest.
It was great, and it was just dad joke after dad joke.
When one joke failed, another would appear.
I was like, oh, so
I was the only one laughing out loud, though.
This is how American dads really are. And then we watched Titty Titty Bang Bang.
Titty Titty Bang Bang.
I think it's just Titty Bang Bang, actually.
Titty Bang Bang.
One of my all-time favourite, sketch shows.
I had never seen it before, and all I can say...
It made me. I watched so much of that when I was like a young teen.
It explains a lot.
It just completely developed my sense of humour, completely inspired it.
If you're playing the World Weary drinking game, this is when you take a drink, when I just say something like, it explains a lot. So many things in this podcast are making me realize much about myself and about Vi.
Yeah, and the cool thing is that we are known for just blithering on, that is most of our friendship is just non-stop talking, scheming, chatting, gossiping. But this is the one...
Unapologetically.
Yeah. And we've talked about almost everything under the sun. But the one thing we kind of avoided talking about for some reason has been...
our greatest passions.
Is the stuff we're actually super interested in, which is all the extra paranormal, weird, strange
crazy
stuff.
Stories, history.
Yeah, we
archaeology.
That's been super interesting that we kind of figured out.
Yeah.
That was something we're not tired of talking about it with each other, basically.
No. And there's so much we're learning about each other still. Do this with a friend, even if you don't have to podcast it. Just choose a topic to talk about. Because it really will bring up some stuff. Alright, are we ready to delve into today's topic?
Yep. I'm buckled in.
I always imagine I'm some kind of crazy leader when it's my episode to lead. I am...
You're the thing from Mad Max and the lead car
yes.
with all the pipes
I'm
and
a Highlander. Okay, so this episode, I'm the Highlander.
Okay.
The only one. But that just means that, I chose today's topic, which I was really interested in and wanted to talk about almost right at the beginning of the podcast. It's episode 3 or 4? I don't know anymore. Skeptics. Believe it or not. I chose today's topic. So keep an open mind. But don't fall for cheap tricks, Violet.
Mm-hmm.
Don't worry, though. There are at least one or two honest liars ready to help us see through the illusion. After all, it's great to live in a fantasy world, but if you haven't got at least 1 foot on solid ground, you could make yourself vulnerable. And vulnerable people are often taken advantage of by psychics and mediums. Alright, so today's episode is celebrate. That was my dramatic bit.
Nicely done.
It's celebrating skeptics. Well, I love to explore the fantastic and the supernatural and spooky. For me, the same argument they have to keep an open mind, it's also necessary to keep an open mind. And that's not just toward the spooky and strange. This argument against skepticism, I've heard it in interviews while listening to stuff this week and researching. They always go, oh, well, you've already decided before we even spoke that you don't believe us. He's like, but on science! So it's good to know your stuff and try and explore every side of things, because it's fun as well. These people are crazy. Skeptics are the most fun. They're the biggest trolls. It's amazing. One of the quotes I heard was, oh, mediums don't become millionaires. If you look at John Edwards' net worth right now is $3 million. So, who's lying? But like psychics, mediums, faith healers, demonologists, these are people who make money claiming they can do incredible supernatural things. There is no silent contract of entertainment like with magicians, where everyone knows you're being tricked. Because if you didn't know you were being tricked, it would quite honestly be horrifying. No one wants to actually see someone sawn in half, unless you're weird.
Yeah.
In that respect.
Yeah.
So, they're asking for money from people in exchange for sharing these magical, otherworldly gifts. And this is tarot reading with Miss Cleo, crossing over with John Edward. Frauds are out there right now, making money from people's misfortunes and worries. And this is why we need skeptics. Before we get into our stories, today I was just going to ask Violet a couple random questions. Here we go, quiz time. I wanted to know if you had any experience with being around magicians or illusionists or anything like that.
Oh, God.
Ever seen a magic show or something like that?
I'm sure I did, but the only thing that comes to mind was like a neighbour's kid. When I first moved to this town, there was like a little genius, like 12-year-old boy in our street who was like an epic mini magician.
Oh wow! So
like
training.
We spent like a whole summer. I was like riding my bicycle up and down the hill and being chased around by a bunch of little kids, and this boy would just be there like doing card tricks all day out in the street. Yeah,
that's cool. I've met people who love card tricks and like tricking people. I've been fortunate to meet, but I've never been to a magic show, and I don't think I've ever really experienced anything other than like a couple party tricks.
Yeah.
So I was just wondering, because you never know. You never know. I thought you might have, like, I don't know.
You'd think it's the one thing that's missing, actually, is that I wasn't an assistant as a child. A child assistant in some weird magic show. Part
of me is sad that I'll never get into these geeky magic circles, because I just didn't care enough. Oh, yes. I am the Hathawak. Sorry. There are nerds out there like, stop misquoting, dude. Alright, so, for my story, I'm going to be focusing on Randall James Hamilton Zwinge, a.k.a. The Amazing Randy, a.k.a. James Randy. Everyone knows him, right?
Yeah. Amazing. Amazing Randy.
The Amazing Randy. I'm going to start with a lot of his titles on Wikipedia here. Conjurer.
Nice.
Co-founder of the Committee for Skeptical Inquiry, short to CSI.
Sweet.
Get ready for this one. The previous name of the committee was the Committee for Scientific Investigation of Claims of the Paranormal, or the CSI COP. Fucking nerds. He is the founder of the James Randi Educational Foundation. He was a stage magician and a scientific skeptic, is what he calls himself. Scientific skeptic. His foundation famously had the $1 million paranormal challenge, in which JREF, we'll call his foundation, would pay out $1 million to anyone, I'm trying to do his voice, $1 million to anyone who could demonstrate a supernatural, paranormal ability under agreed upon scientific testing criteria.
Love it. I remember seeing, like, on TV somewhere, clips of them testing people that would come in claiming to be able to do something. And all these, like, dudes, like, staring at, like, a pencil or something, or trying to get something to levitate, and...
He's great. And there have always been resurgences of these things. Like, it gets popular, then it gets unpopular, sort of like films. And I'm finding more and more that it was the 70s. Of course, the 1800s, late 1800s had a big span of it. And then another resurgence in the 20s. And there have always been these pockets of history. I think we're coming into one. And I think it's going to be ooky spooky for a few years. It's going to be great.
Well, you know, they say we're going into this, like, a new kind of romance era again, where it's like when stuff's... There's that kind of theory that, you know, when stuff is really crap and everything's sort of a little bit apocalyptic, people turn...
To art and fantasy.
People are world weary and they turn to a bit of fantasy and this sort of escapism. And that's, you know, sort of the same...
It's easier to think you're being haunted by a ghost than by a dwindling paycheck.
Oh, yeah.
You're struggling month to month.
Yeah.
And people are shouting about things you don't understand politically. Like...
It was like why, like, trends in, like, horoscopes and stuff go up and stuff. Or belief in... You know, or like witchcraft is the big thing. Like, why is witchcraft like resurged?
Vampire films, Anne Rice, like, we are totally recovering goths, basically. I don't think I ever went full on goth. I've always been one of those people that pretty much wore a t-shirt and jeans for so long. And then I've been exploring ever since. When I got into my 20s, I was like, I'm going to wear everything.
Like, as I mentioned to you the other day, my childhood, as a child, I was basically a character in a Tim Burton movie.
Every time I see a picture of you, you are a Tim Burton character. She is a Tim Burton character.
I was like super pale, like always looking like bleak. I looked weary of the world at a young age. Maybe made of paper, had like freaking hair made of little black threads or something. I was my own kind of weird, eccentric, second-hand jumble sale clothes goth. From like 11 onwards, living out in like the woods or living out in weird little houses in a house full of taxidermy and a magical mother. And
I always went through weeaboo / maybe I'm a vampire, weeaboo / I'm a witch. And I always had this theory, I should be able to make it up myself because at some point somebody made it up. And that's when I came across years later chaos magic, and I've gone full on into it again. But I keep it to myself, mainly. Like,
I think I was just raised on so much 90s witch stuff and whatnot that it just naturally happened. I grew up with that belief set as well of like, witches are real.
We full on have witch conversation. Like, I am a witch. That is just how I feel. And it's not just candles and such. I hear that I've heard that said by a podcast that shall be unnamed, where they're like, all these young women with candles and stuff. No, they're taking back their power. That's what it's about. It's individualism and power. And taking your back, you know, empowering yourself in just simple ways. They have no idea what's happening, and it's going to get bigger. And I'm glad this wave is happening. And I can't wait to see all the new young witches use their power for... I don't know, whatever. I'm chaos witch.
Let's just start up an academy for young witches. Like,
I'm thinking about it.
That's the big money maker.
World-weary witches.
The amount of people who, you know, want to come be trained up to be a witch. We get cute uniforms. Yeah. Rent out some creepy old mansion here.
You're in charge of your destiny. We'll provide the safe space for you to explore you. World-weary witch.
Yeah, definitely.
Academy.
Get me in the wheelchair.
You're gonna be the
a super tall witch hat to make up for the height difference.
You're in like an isolated weird chamber.
I'll be the head mistress of the school.
Yes. I definitely want to be sort of like the lady that takes care of the behind the scenes stuff, and like I have the ears and eyes, and then I report to you, the headmistress.
Yeah.
But I have like a class that I teach scrying or something where
Chaos.
I'm just like, chaos, yes, of course, chaos, a little bit chaos. Sigils today, sigils at 1 p.m. Let's make it happen.
I'm gonna wheel down the stairs at the grand entrance on the first day of term and be like, welcome to Violet's Witch Academy.
I cannot wait, you have no idea. So back to skeptics and why we should... James Randi would just be like, oh, ladies. So, this $1 million challenge. So, the original challenge in 1964 had thousands of people apply, but none were successful. Keep in mind, you have to do this challenge under scientific conditions, which is no joke. You aren't fucking... We're gonna pat you down. We're gonna make sure you ain't got anything up your sleeves. And you have to do it. If you're gonna be psychic, you have to do it in our conditions. It should be easy if you've got the power. If you've got the power. After that initial thousands of people applying, they kept the challenge up, but surprisingly enough, no celebrity psychics or mediums took up the challenge, except for Sylvia Brown, who's quite famous in America. She was on the Montel Williams show. I don't know if she made it over here.
Yeah, I don't think I can remember
She
hearing
was
of her.
national, she had bookings on her phone to people paid $700 or so. I don't know if that's an exact figure, approximately, to talk with her for 20 minutes. And she was booked for years. So this is a very wealthy woman making money off of saying whatever. There's a lot to do with her and her controversies, but I can't get into all of these frauds.
Oh, yeah.
So basically she chicken shitted out of it. She applied for it and then was like, oh, I can't. I was thinking if you actually had real powers, I think this is where they're coming from with not even going to touch it.
Yeah.
If you had real powers, you would never reveal yourself, though. You would never reveal yourself, and you'd never tell anyone, and you wouldn't use it very much, because this is a world where you would just become scientific experiment.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You wouldn't...
You'd appear on the Ellen show, and then you'd dis-a-fucking-peer.
Yeah. The military would want you. You just wouldn't. And the deal is, as well, it's just like, if you had those kind of abilities, for example, if you could see glimpses into the future, that would mess with me so much to have that responsibility that I was able to do that. I mean, I just wouldn't want to be able to do it. I wouldn't want to share that necessarily. Like, I would have had to find some kind of, like, coping mechanism where I shut that down.
Yeah.
In order to, like, just get on with living.
Yeah. You'd have to do something. So, yeah, nobody really is taking the challenge. Dennis Rollins described the challenge as insincere, saying that Randi would ensure he never had to pay out. In the October 1981 issue of Fate, Rollins quoted him as saying, "I always have an out." Randi stated that Rollins did not give the entire quotation and actually said, "Concerning the challenge, I always have an out. I'm right." So they're all bullshit, basically, he's saying. So Rosemary Atlee suggested, the $1 million prize fund does not exist, or is in the form of pledges or promissory notes. The JREF stated that the $1 million was in the form of negotiable bonds with the James Randi Educational Foundation prize account, and that validation of the account and the prize amount could be supplied on demand. The money was held in the Evercore Wealth Management account, so they provided proof. So, he's Canadian. He became fascinated with magic at a young age. He read conjuring books as a kid and would describe himself as a conjurer in general. He dropped out of high school after skipping out a bunch. When he was 17, he'd skip school to go do magic. What a nerd. And then he joined a Carnival Roadshow and performed as a conjurer. Carney!
That's how to do it.
Yes, we love our carnival folk. He did various jobs here and there, mentalist gigs, but in his 20s he became a real shitster. So he would pose as an astrologer, writing in a column in a tabloid named Midnight, and his spooky astrologer name was Zoran.
Ooh.
He basically took a bunch of bullshit randomized columns and then put them into his column.
I feel like in Brighton, which I visited in the summer, I went to Brighton Pier to have a look at it because it's like the famous tourist attraction there. Like this old style pier with all the like arcade and all the old games and stuff and ice cream and chips and seagulls and stuff.
Yeah.
And like a couple of fairground rides like balanced really dangerously on the end of it. And they had a like amazing Zoran
Oh, really?
freaking, it's like a a glass case thing with the horrible little like wax wizard puppet in it, and you put like 1p in or like 20p or something, and it gives you like a little paper fortune, and the horrible puppet thing like bends and stuff inside the
wow,
the
so
case.
maybe he even stole that name from something he saw or something.
Or maybe it was like kind of based on him.
That'd be cool. The Amazing Zoran. So he bullshit his way through, and he traveled around the world observing other tricksters. He watched a lot of people doing the one-ahead method. So, do you know what that is?
No.
Here we go. This
Tell me.
involves a stack of envelopes written with all the audience. The
Okay.
audience writes something like, my grandmother died this year. I want to know if she's... So, with the first envelope, the psychic or medium uses sleight of hand, or they exclaim that the first envelope is from an audience member that's too powerful or closed-minded for them to read. And so they use a plant from the audience that goes, oh, that was me. And it doesn't matter what the first envelope says. Because the first envelope is actually the next person. He's reading it, memorizing it, saying some bullshit, and then the next one he opens, he says what he just memorized out loud, and then memorizes that one until the deck is gone. So the first one doesn't matter, because by the time it starts, because the rest of the audience is genuine, and it appears that they are psychic, and they know it, and then they do some flourishes, and it's really simple, but it's really impressive to audience, because as long as you've got a plant for either the first or the last envelope, it's an easy way of making people think you're psychic, because he holds it to his forehead and reads it, but he's one ahead.
Yeah.
So he witnessed all these tricks and made mental notes. He became a magician. He did TV shows, radio shit. He toured with Alice fucking Cooper in the 70s as like a magician sort of gig. He was on a very quaint, very Canadian entitled show called World of Wizards.
World of Wizards. That could be my new theme park idea.
All right, so he was also an escapist. He did crazy escapist stuff. I think I read somewhere that he beat one of Houdini's records, but people didn't think that was impressive or something, because Houdini was well old, mate. So he's a member of all the nerdy magician societies. He's in the UK's Inner Magic Circle, which is seriously hard to get into. Like, he's in the inner circle, not just part of it. He's no joke. But the 70s, back in the 70s, is when he really hit his trolling, his stride. He was maximum troll under the bridge. Pre-internet, messing with people. Like you said, there were TV shows where he would just essentially humiliate mediums and stuff. And so this is, so that's the best thing about skeptics. Especially if they used to be a magician. They're natural trolls. They know what they're talking about. They've seen it before. And James Randi has always had the performance bug. So he wants attention for it as well. He wants to be like, look at this and look at me. And that's why his foundation's like the James Randi Fund. We love it. We love a good-sized ego. He's got to go full on. If he's going to catch people out, he's not going to catch people out. He's going to make a production of catching them out and humiliate them with a smile on his face and be like, explain that. But at the same time, he's giving these people attention as well. Because here's the thing. People are going to believe what they want to believe. And James Randi said himself, the problem with skeptics is that you take things away from people. You don't fill the hole. You'll say, the ghost doesn't exist. This doesn't exist, and I'll prove it to you. But you don't give them any alternative.
No.
And people are just looking for an alternative. And if you don't give them an alternative, somebody with ill intentions might scoop them up and convince them that aliens are coming, they need to kill themselves.
Yeah.
So there's a bunch of stuff I could probably get into, and I've definitely digressed a bit. But what I want to talk about is the showdown of the century. So this is from James Randi and his Secrets of the Psychics documentary, which I did watch, but Wikipedia also quoted the best bits, so they know exactly what we mean. Good job. So, in 1973, Geller appeared on The Tonight Show. In the documentary, Randi says that Johnny Carson, had been a magician himself and was skeptical of Geller's claimed paranormal powers. So prior to the date of taping, Randy was asked to help prevent any trickery. Per Randy's advice, the show prepared its own props without informing Geller, and did not let Geller or his staff anywhere near them. When Geller joined Carson on stage, he appeared surprised that he was not going to be interviewed, but instead was expected to display his abilities using the provided articles. Geller said, "This scares me." I've seen the clip, you can watch it. So, "This scares me. I'm surprised because before this program, your producer came and he read at least 40 questions you were going to ask me." So they've tripped him, right?
I feel like I've seen this clip, like, and he, like, cops out, and it's just, you can see the, like, he's, like, smiling, and then when he realizes that
he has to display it in
he has to try and display, and it's not gonna happen, it's like...
And this is what he says, "I don't feel strong," and sort of expressing displeasure, like he was being pressed to perform. The result, basically, was a legendary immolation, in which Geller offered up flustered excuses, like you said. It was uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Completely uncomfortable to watch. If you go look it up.
Look at his
Uri
face.
Geller, Tonight Show, Johnny Carson.
Yeah.
He was like, "I want to go back to my hotel, devastated. I was about to pack up the next day and go back to Tel Aviv," which is where he's from. "I thought, that's it, I'm destroyed." However, this appearance on The Tonight Show, which Carson and Randy had orchestrated to debunk, they say debunk Geller's claims. No. They set out to humiliate this man. That's what they set out to do. Don't sugarcoat it. It backfired. To Geller's astonishment, he was immediately booked on the Merv Griffin show, and he was on his way to becoming a paranormal superstar. So, guys, try and debunk us so we can become
superstars.
So that Johnny Carson show made Uri Geller, Geller said. To an enthusiastically trusting public, his failure only made his gifts seem more real. If he were performing magic tricks, they would surely work every time. According to him, I love that logic. Like, oh, he didn't feel strong, man. Otherwise, he could do it. Like, magicians do it all the time.
It's like your magic bar is, like, depleted.
And this is what happens when your healthy skeptic is also previously a magician. So who the fuck is Uri Geller? He's born in Tel Aviv, and he almost has a similar sort of setup to James Randi, where he's got the performance bug, so much so that he became known in USA and Europe. Difficult to get yourself known internationally, anywhere. So he's becoming internationally known. Here's where he differs from James Randi's path. Geller has claimed his feats are the result of paranormal powers given to him by extraterrestrials.
I love it. I love people. That's the thing I'm most interested in when you meet someone who claims to have some kind of abilities, when they've got a story about how they got their powers, or...
It's the best. I love it. I love people. I love people so much. Yes, Uri Geller. Extraterrestrials have given you your powers. Let's do this.
That's more interesting than being like, oh, I inherited it, or...
We've met our hero. This is the hero of the story, Violet. Uri Geller has Twitter. So, he's born in 1946. He's getting on. He's like 73. James Randi's 90 now.
Yeah, really.
Still kicking. His Twitter feed is scary. Not because of anything paranormal, but just recently on Valentine's Day, he had a tweet showing a video of him. This is what the tweet says. "Last night, in front of a crowd of 800, all were educators." It's 2019, and Uri Geller is like performing tricks in front of... Oh, man. Nowadays, he's a judge on Israel's Got Talent, and he's been defrauded a lot of times, but god damn it, we need a hero.
Yeah.
So, it would all be sort of cute, fun and games, except Uri Geller has been suing James Randi for years, right? James Randi hasn't made it particularly difficult for him, because he's had... This is why. So, he wrote a book called The Truth About Uri Geller, formerly known as The Magic of Uri Geller. 1982 book by skeptic James Randi about the alleged psychic Uri Geller. In the book, Randi challenges Geller's assertions that he performs paranormal feats. Randy explores Geller's background as a stage magician and explains how Geller's spoon bending can easily be reproduced by any magician using sleight of hand. In 1991, Geller filed a $15 million lawsuit against Randy. He's filed so many lawsuits that he got done for filing lawsuits, frivolous lawsuits at one point. Against Randy and his committee, the CSI cop, over slander concerning Randy's statements that Geller had tricked even reputable scientists with tricks that are the kind that used to be on the pack of cereal boxes when I was a kid. So he's just ultimate trolling, this guy. The court dismissed the case, and Geller had to eventually settle the case at a cost of $120,000 to himself. In February 1992, he sued Randy, Prometheus, and local book distributors in London for libel concerning the magic of Uri Geller. It centered on this sentence. The whole case centered on, he began his career as a stage magician in Israel, where he was once arrested for claiming his feats were performed with psychic power. Since Geller had not been arrested, but had merely been sued, the publisher issued an erratum that changed the phrase. So he commented in 1993, Randy, my position is that I made an unintended factual error in misinterpreting the words brought to court and guilty as arrested, and that this was done without malice or reckless disregard for the truth. He's one of those dudes.
Okay.
You've seen him on Reddit.
Yeah.
He can't be argued with. He's gonna take you to court if he has to. Just give him Reddit gold and get out of there. Delete your account. April 92, he sued them for $4 million, the Prometheus books, in libel for 2 other books. The suit was thrown out, and the judge ordered Geller to pay $20,000 in legal fees that were Randy's legal fees. So he keeps having to pay the legal fees. After Geller's 3 lawsuits, Randy said he never even paid $1 or even 1 cent to anyone who ever sued me, and certainly not to Geller. So he's being sued all over the place for doing the Lord's work. In the end, Geller ended up paying out to Randy a few times. In 2008, Geller is quoted as saying, I'll no longer say that I have supernatural powers. I am an entertainer. I want to do a good show. My entire character has changed. So he learned his lesson at 60. Well done. You did it, man. So I guess the moral of my story is don't steal vulnerable people's money, or the James Randys of the world are going to get you.
Yeah, and don't try and sue James Randi.
Yeah, don't take a cute trick and pretend it's real to the point you're delusional, and then try and sue James Randi and other skeptics because you can't let go of the lie. Just be an entertainer. Let the audience have a chance to say, yes, the silent contract. Don't just trick people. I want to get into, like, fake mediums at some point, but we're focused on the skeptics. But James Randi is just a genuinely kind, intelligent, entertaining, and thoughtful person. If you haven't seen or heard of him, make sure you look up his stuff. He's really funny.
What's the documentary called? Is it The Amazing Randy?
There's loads of them.
Yeah, there was the one I watched really recently.
An Honest Liar.
Yeah, that was on Netflix, I think. Okay. I can't feel like it was called The Amazing Randy.
There's also one called...
that follows his entire career, and then more recently, like, events in his personal life, and it's just super in-depth and just a fascinating kind of really character study. Yeah, he's such like a strange but like sweet person.
And he's always got something to say.
And so clever and like very driven.
Yeah, it's when I need to keep one foot on the ground, I go for James Randi and skeptics and stuff like that and have a good old binge. When I need to come back down to earth for a bit, you find James Randi. He's going to help you out. He's going to put it in terms that you can understand, that anyone can understand, because it's universal. He just doesn't want people to be tricked. Yeah.
I mean, it's just, he's so talented as a conjurer, a magician, and an escape artist. Then he showed everyone how he lifted the lid. He revealed how, you know, how the tricks are done. Yeah, it's pretty cool that he did kind of want to expose fakery, but also at the same time, you know, he was kind of open-minded, I think, when he was promoting the tests to see if people were real psychics or not.
Yeah.
But people who, you know, where they asked for people with psychic abilities to come in and be examined.
I think it was...
There was a certain feeling, he wasn't, you know, being a total naysayer about it. He was kind of open-minded that, you know, maybe someone would come forward who genuinely did have some kind of ability or...
and think about the scientist in him would then have exclusive access to that person. And he'd be like, okay. I just think that that kind of person is open-minded. Just because they're closing certain doors that, you know, you choose what you believe. You don't have to get upset by it. But, like, he's making sure people don't get taken advantage of. We need people like that out there.
It's a healthy balance. You can entertain stuff. You can be open-minded. You can believe whatever you want. But good for us to have a little bit of a balance there. It's good.
And they're interesting people.
And skepticism solves so many problems.
As well.
And you know, it exposes kind of nefarious people sometimes, which is pretty important.
But that's my mini James Randi story.
There's
so many documentaries. Go check it out.
Super interesting, fascinating guy. Watch the documentary.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
So my story today is a little different because this episode's kind of been, you know, sort of based on skeptics, but more kind of a lifting the lid with skeptics on kind of, I guess, scammer mediums, maybe. So my story today involves a spiritual medium, a parapsychologist, an expose,
oh wow,
and one of my favourite TV shows from my teenage years, the British paranormal reality series,
Ghost Hunters?
Most Haunted.
Oh, Most Haunted! I've seen a lot of these different shows. I love them.
So, Most Haunted is a British TV show. I think it's still going, actually, but its heyday was the mid-2000s. I think that's sort of when it started. It's presented by Yvette Fielding, formerly of Blue Peter. Do you know what Blue Peter is?
Yes, the children's program.
Yeah, Britain's children TV program. And the series Most Haunted is actually produced by her husband. So she presents, kind of hosts the show, husband produces it, and they have a team on each episode that it used to always include at least a historian, parapsychologist, and a psychic medium or spiritual medium.
This is the thing, they're entertainers, so they're only doing a TV show, so people have a choice to watch it at that point. And you kind of, this is why I love those shows. They're excluded as far as...
And I've watched a lot of these shows, I've watched a lot of ghost hunting shows, but to me, Most Haunted, it's my favourite. It's the one that kind of had a bit of everything, and it's got a kind of quirky Britishness to it.
Isn't she
that I'm sure is very charming. She's blonde. Slightly crazy eyes. She's a very timid, sweet
she's lovely.
woman, but with a kind of strange cat-like bravery and fierceness sometimes, and such a good presenter.
Something coming from the basement.
A very she's a not dramatic, but she's got an energy to her which is kind of makes you feel nervous as well, I suppose.
Oh yeah, I'm starting to remember a little bits and pieces.
So, if you have never watched Most Haunted, or even not familiar at all with like a ghost hunting TV show, Most Haunted basically follows this team ghost hunting, investigating a haunted place for 24 hours in each episode. So, in a typical episode, the team rock up to a British stately home. They chat about the history of the house and the families that had owned it, and they maybe interview the current owners or like the housekeeper or the butler on the paranormal things, the hauntings, the ghost stories that have happened there. And then they would kind of start with this daylight tour of the house. And I think they usually bring a medium and the sort of parapsychologist round the house in the daylight. Kind of,
I just love that.
Not fully go in deep, but just like pick up on the energies. They're looking for the hot spots. Kind of like, the medium might kind of identify, I feel like there might be a female energy in this room. And then they can kind of set up cameras and monitor stuff for these hot spots. And then after dark, the whole team kind of starts their proper investigation in the dark with like night vision cameras.
They do it so respectfully in the British one. In the American one, these dudes trample on things and they're like, just say something. If you can hear me, say something. He's shouting and he's just like knocking on the wall. Knock twice.
Yeah, it is got a quirky Britishness to it. We're polite.
We'll tea in the drawing
People
room.
are very respectful about the way they like open a door or like put down a teacup or whatever. Like,
I'm pretty sure the little girl would have sat here, so we'll just leave that chair in the corner there. Just don't touch it. Like things like that.
You know, if you let these, I don't know, these like two American dudes with a freaking night vision GoPro into like one of these stately homes, they'd just be like smashing the teacups. Like,
I'm not the only one who feels this way as well.
Yeah.
I'm not the only American that feels this way. You know.
It's got great etiquette, Most Haunted. Great etiquette. So they set up all the cameras and stuff. They like come out with a kind of mini plan of what their investigation's going. They've identified the ghost hotspots in the house. And then nighttime comes and they explore the property, sometimes with a different medium to the one that toured in the daylight. So they can kind of compare the results, because both psychic mediums come up with a similar thing. It's like, wow, they're both tapping into the same information here. And then the height of the drama, the sort of peak of the show, of that episode, would revolve around a kind of seance or like Ouija board, or the crew attempting some kind of communication with spirits. And then at the end, they kind of review the weird knock sound on the the video camera picked up in the you know, the dungeon or something.
I would love to go on one of those shows. It'd be great. Hit me up.
The deal with this program was that they said, they made very clear, especially like the first episode, there is no acting. And the producer said that the mediums were not given information about where they'd be going in advance, so that the results could be as genuine as possible.
Yeah.
So these people weren't like prepping by like Googling the house and trying to find out, you know, what the haunting was or former residents, that kind of thing. And then, you know, most of the show comes out in this trademark spooky green night vision camera look. There's a lot of like, make a noise if you can, please, ghost. Or, you know, knock twice if you are Mary, the woman who supposedly committed suicide here 500 years ago. There's a lot of that. And then people, you know, there would be like a faint, like, and Yvette Fielding, the presenter, would normally scream. She kind of got famous for like screaming and fainting, so you got to check it out. What I thought was kind of weird or just odd about the show was that the production crew, like the camera people, like Yvette's makeup girl, the sound engineer, they would also have to support the investigation, which I guess brought a sense of, that was a good move because it made it more realistic. Like the camera, you know, the cameraman is actually freaking getting poltergeisted in the background. So they brought them into it. So they would kind of support the investigation on screen by taking part in the seances and stuff. So, you know, like the sound guy would be like holding in the circle. But that's like, you know, that's also what I loved about it, was that they made it kind of real as possible. The seance isn't really serious unless everyone, including the cameraman, are like in the circle, you know, so that was super cool about it. And if they were doing something in like investigating an old prison, they would always like shut some dude like the poor lighting technician guy in a cell in the dark.
You'd be alright, Jerry.
Yeah, with like a little GoPro type camera, and it was always the same. It was always like he would be fine for like 5 minutes and then be like, oh, I'm really cold. Oh, mate, I've got to get out of here. I feel like I'm in danger. And then they would always freak out and like run out of the cell. And I remember ones where like Yvette Fielding and some like random like female crew members were like taking part in a seance and like freaking out. It was, it's an adorable ghost hunting show. Sometimes they had guest celebrities join the investigations, but more interesting, in my opinion, were kind of the expert investigators that were on the official Most Haunted team.
Okay.
So this one guy on their team was called Fred Bat. He was like the resident demonologist for a while on Most Haunted, like a kind of, he would do like the history of the house or, you know, some kind of weird occult history stuff. But Fred Bat, not only is he a demonologist, but he's also a businessman from London and a nightclub owner.
Yeah.
He used to own this huge, I think it's like a 2,000 person capacity nightclub in South London that's really famous. And they actually featured this club, it's called Caesars, on one of the most haunted episodes because Fred Batt, demonologist by day, nightclub owner by night.
Haunted.
He claimed that his nightclub was haunted by the ghost of Ruth Ellis, who was the last woman to be hanged in the UK,
wow.
which was in the
Really?
50s.
I know her.
Yeah, the one she was really famous. She was a model and a nightclub hostess at Caesar's Club. She's the one she shot her lover, this racing car driver David Blakely, outside a pub in London. She was found guilty and executed, all at 28 years old. So Fred was, sure that this nightclub was haunted by her ghost. And what a character to have on your crew. Demonologist by day, nightclub owner at night. I mean, that should be my life. Like, I could be like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, but my side job is managing a club.
And we can always get the young witches from the academy to get part-time internships there.
Definitely. Right, let's see if I can show you a picture of Fred Batt, because I need you to be able to see demonologist / nightclub owner. It's like, what do you imagine? Like,
okay, I'm imagining, she's not showing me the picture yet. I'm imagining slightly spiky dark hair, that 2000 spiky hair gelled up. Maybe, I don't want to say he's wearing glasses or sunglasses. He's got some kind of goatee or unusual facial hair. And he's not gaunt, and he's trying to have muscles.
okay.
What does he look like?
See, when I imagined what Fred Batt looked like, I imagined the academic from Buffy. Anthony...
I never watched Buffy. I saw 2 episodes. My brother was obsessed with it.
God. I can't remember what else he's in, but I was imagining kind of guy who looked like a university lecturer, but with a medallion and an open shirt.
Yeah.
That's what I was imagining. This is Fred Batt.
Oh my gosh, I'm telling you, that was what I guessed. He doesn't have gelled hair.
He's a bit older than...
He's older than I thought.
Yeah,
but he's got the weird mustache and goatee.
He's got the crazy goatee.
He's not gaunt, but he looks like he's got a Skeletor
He's got
face.
a huge, chunky-looking crucifix on a chunky silver chain.
Okay.
He's groomed.
I wasn't quite there. I was thinking he was younger.
Nice black turtleneck.
I was thinking like 2000s.
This is young him back in the day with a giant stuffed tiger.
See, there we go.
Yeah. So, sadly, my story isn't about the demonologist nightclub owner, really. But that kind of gives you a flavour for the sort of characters that worked on the show. So, back to Most Haunted, like I said, I really enjoyed watching that programme in my teenage years. I love freaking historic houses and hauntings, but I did become kind of fascinated by psychic mediums, spirit mediums, people that claim to communicate with spirits. And I think in the mid-2000s, at least on British TV, there was a bit of a trend in reality shows following celebrity mediums. There was like Psychic Sally, Colin Fry. I would watch Psychic Sally. It was great because not only did it show her like on tour, giving these like live shows and like private readings, but it also showed her personal life and her like battle with weight loss and this like funny little husband that was like driving her around to all these clairvoyant shows and stuff. So I'd be like sitting around at my dad's house like binge watching all these like medium shows, and then I would always get my dad like walking in being like, oh, don't watch that rubbish, like. And I ended up feeling a bit ashamed and like secretive about watching those shows because I used to binge watch them. And like, I don't know, this is partly like the issue like we were talking about earlier today we were talking about the issue with when you're kind of surrounded by what you'd call like naysayers. Like, you know, there is like a serious stigma, at least I think in this country for sure, around believing in clairvoyance or like even entertaining the idea that people can be psychic or spiritual mediums or what have you. You know, it's very much if you believe in this stuff or you're interested in it, then that's a sign that you're either mentally unstable or you are stupid, you're easily fooled. Yeah. And I mean, that stigma could probably go for like most of the topics that we talk about in this podcast.
Definitely. This is like a haven.
But you know, our lives have that beautiful extra dimension because we are kind of open-minded and willing to entertain stuff that we can't explain, you know. So I have to be open-minded about mediums. I've heard enough stories of people who've had like unexplainably accurate readings, or I've got family members that have visited mediums for answers to stuff. So I think I need to kind of make it clear before we go on that this story is not about whether or not people with abilities to communicate with spirits exist, but that this is a story about a person who like claims to have those abilities and has made a career for themselves in this field and was exposed.
Yeah, drag them.
So back to Most Haunted. So one of the spiritual mediums that was on the Most Haunted investigation team was a guy called Derek Acora. So here's his fact file. He was born as Derek Johnson.
Yeah, I bet his name was changed. I was about to say there's a Cora difference between this and his real name.
He chose to use the surname Acora sort of as a professional name. He's now 69 years old, so retirement age coming up. Derek's a Scouser. Do you know where Scousers are from? Can you remember?
Are from Liverpool?
Yes.
Yay!
Liverpool, like Merseyside, that area.
Liverpool.
And yeah, that's like beep beep. It's like and bevies. They call drinks bevies there. Fancy a bevy?
I'm gonna fit in.
He started out as a professional footballer before he went into professional mediumship. So he's an interesting guy, footballer gone psychic.
Sounds like someone who's like, can't use body no more. Use mind.
Literally, I think he had like an injury or something that ended his career, and he went into being a professional medium.
Now.
So Derek's grandmother was a medium, which is possibly where he inherited his gift. And Derek has a spirit guide, which he calls Sam. And according to Derek, before Sam passed and became a kind of spiritual entity, he was known as Masume, and he lived in Ethiopia approximately 2,000 years ago. So Sam seems to work as kind of middleman or like supportive spiritual guide, sort of between Derek and the spirit world. And Derek says in a lot of interviews that his role as a medium is more about like helping people to connect and communicate with the spirits of their loved ones, and that he kind of recognizes a responsibility to use his gift wisely and respectfully. We shall see. We shall see, Derek. So during the 90s, Derek starts appearing on TV shows like Psychic Lifetime, and then in the early 2000s, when Most Haunted launched, he got on the team as one of the resident mediums.
Oh, yeah.
And that really established him as a sort of TV celeb psychic.
Yeah.
So on Most Haunted, they didn't always use the same psychic or medium. And I think, sometimes they use like two psychics on the same investigation to compare. But what made Derek Acora very memorable on Most Haunted was a certain kind of showmanship.
Okay.
That he would sometimes become possessed by spiritual entities. And he also seemed to be able to kind of seek out evil or violent, quite dramatic spirits a lot. Other psychics would be like, I feel the presence of a woman and I feel she's very strongly connected to this room. But Derek would be like start talking in like a weird voice, or he would like express the spirit through body movement, and it would often appear kind of intimidating, like he would frighten poor old Yvette Fielding. It was very his style of displaying his channeling and displaying his connection with the spirit world was very sensational. It was big, it was jazz hands. So there's one episode that really stood out to me that I always remember, where they're in a grand stately home, I think in Dorset. Yeah. And this house is supposedly haunted by the ghost of an ape. So I'm assuming, someone had a pet gorilla before the Wild Animal Act.
Okay.
Back in the day, that was what you did if you were rich. You just buy in some exotic animals and be very irresponsible, let the monkeys damage the artwork and
Lord
rip
Bath's
them.
Still doing it.
Yeah. It's just he's got his outside now, safely contained in cages. This house is supposedly haunted by the ghost of an ape. They're like sat around in this like darkened room with like the owners, the current owners,
I see where this is
and
going.
like the investigation team and Yvette, and they're sort of doing a little interview. And Derek's there, and Derek starts doing these, like, he picks up on a spirit in the room.
Suddenly Derek appeared to be influenced by the spirit of the monkey, known as the Martin's ape.
And because the family dog's kind of looking off into space, he knows the dog is looking at the spirit. He starts doing these weird, like, animal-like gestures, and then, like, saying that the family dog that lives in this big house is, like, looking at the ghost of a monkey that is in this room right now. And it's TV gold. TV gold.
Gosh. I need to watch this program, like, binge it. I think I've seen clips, but I've never binged it.
Well, I hope after this story, everyone will want to check it out, because it's a surprisingly relaxing show for something that could be a bit spooky and frightening. So all of Derek's kind of stuff is very kind of entertaining, but personally, and I've watched a lot of TV shows featuring mediums, and I sometimes find myself wanting, really wanting to believe them. But I found Derek's, like, channeling and these possessions, they were really hard to watch.
I'm aware of, at times, a woman's energies.
Sorry,
Okay.
I'm getting a bit...
There's energies afoot here that are not wanting us to be here.
Like, sometimes kind of cringy. I think the main thing that just was hilarious.
I'm just imagining.
One of the funniest things as well about him was that, like, all these weird voices when he would be, like, possessed, they still had a thick Scouse accent. And, like, to most Brits, that we know that accent is specific to a very small region of England, and predominantly it's, like, working class accent.
Yeah.
So, like, Derek's being possessed by the spirit of a lord of the manor who should have been talking like this, or, like, a historic queen or someone. But, he was like, fancy a bevy? Like, it sounded hilarious because he's got this really thick Scouse accent. So it's sort of difficult to take seriously sometimes. And there's something about it, there's a sprinkle of something that just makes him difficult to believe for me. So, I've already said I've watched loads of ghost hunting shows, but one of the things that I really like about Most Haunted is that they did also make a point of actually going into the science and the kind of psychology of hauntings and the paranormal, and they tried to have an equal balance of, like, supernatural stuff and healthy skepticism by always having both this, like, sort of more skeptical parapsychologist and the, like, psychic or spiritual medium on the investigation team. So they tried to be equal. So Most Haunted had a resident parapsychologist. They had lots of psychologists.
What's a parapsychologist?
I'll explain.
Oh, perfect.
They had a bunch of different parapsychologists, like, depending which series or episodes it was. So a parapsychologist is someone who studies paranormal and psychic phenomena and kind of the psychology and the science of it. The resident parapsychologist I'm going to talk about is Dr. Kieran O'Keefe. He's a British academic. He's a doctor of parapsychology. In a way, his job on Most Haunted was to kind of explain away anything kind of ghostly or weird that happened on the show. So not only was he the show's kind of official skeptic, but he was the expert on essentially investigating the paranormal properly. And, so if there really was any paranormal experience, he was the best, most qualified person to record it in a scientific and valid a way as possible, which is what you want, because it's all well and good going ghost hunting with, like, two dudes with a GoPro and, like, an abandoned, I don't know, camp in America.
A couple meters and things like that.
But, like, if they found anything, would it really be, did they properly, like, record it? Are they going to be believed? Are they qualified? You know what I mean? So for those of us that are, like, watching these shows and you're, like, really, you're the kind of person that's, like, begging for some, like, ghosty action, you might find someone like Dr. Kieran O'Keefe, like, a bit of a killjoy, a bit of a naysayer, because, you want to believe that those faint knocking sounds were a spirit trying to communicate with, like, the TV crew. But, he'll explain it with, well, actually that can be explained by the fact the floorboards in this house are, like, 500 years old and really creaky, or there are bubbles in the, like, heating pipes or something. But if something truly unexplainable had been witnessed, he's a really necessary person to have on board to, like, validate it and, like, record it and measure it properly. So Dr. Kieran O'Keefe, the parapsychologist, the skeptic guy,
Yeah.
Derek Cora, the spirit medium,
Oh, shit, about to go
on
down.
the same team.
Oh, they're on the same team. Okay, here we go.
So it's always one team. It's just like,
Yeah.
I call them the team because they're an investigative team.
Yeah.
Okay. In 2005, these episodes air. It's like series 6, I think. Most Haunted do an episode investigating the Bodmin Jail on the edge of Bodmin Moor in Cornwall. So Bodmin Jail used to be the county prison for Cornwall from 1779 until it closed in the 1920s. Although some of the jail has fallen into ruins, kind of part of it has been refurbished and turned into like a tourist attraction. I don't know if you could call it a legitimate museum because it's very gory and like carnivalesque in the same way that like the London Dungeons or like a haunted house ride are. In fact, I have like a funny family story, which is the time that my grandparents, who are famous for taking their grandchildren out on like weird, dramatic excursions, often involving trespassing, that have left me and my sister and cousin really traumatized. They took my cousin Jasper to Bodmin Jail when he was a little kid, like definitely like under 10, like not age appropriate for the attraction, because my grandparents probably thought, ooh, like Bodmin Jail Museum, thinking it would be like a regular little like cute museum. Instead, they like scarred my cousin for life probably, because this place is just full of like gory wax models and mannequins everywhere, like probably taken straight off like a broken fairground ride and then put in this like old prison cell looking terrifying with like disfigured wax faces and rotting prison uniforms. House of Wax, but probably worse.
Yeah.
And like information boards telling you how many people were executed there and the crimes the prisoners had committed, and like these stories about how the prison is haunted. They do after the dark like ghost tours. You get the idea. So, Most Haunted investigate Bodmin Jail. Derek Cora, the medium, Dr. Kieran O'Keefe, the parapsychologist, are on the team. During the episode, Derek gets possessed by the aggressive spirit of a South African man named Creed Creed Kafer. And the TV caption comes up, like a little caption when Derek's sort of identifying this spirit that's like, well, we can't find any jail records that match this name, you know, aka there isn't a prisoner or like jailer recorded on the books with this name. After filming the Bodmin Jail episode, the next location that Most Haunted investigate is, I think it's pronounced Prideaux Place. It's like a super gorgeous Elizabethan stately home near Padstow in Cornwall, built in 1592 on the site of an old monastery. So of course it's got like ghosts.
Everything's so old here.
It got ghosts coming out of its ears.
Yeah.
And here, during the investigation, Derek makes contact with the spirit of a highwayman called Rick Edels. So the TV show again puts a caption up that's like, we can't link this to any actual record, like there's no one in the Padstow history books called Rick Edels.
Yeah.
It happens a lot on the show, like it's like it would be like, I pick up a woman who's like, I don't know, a washerwoman called Anne, and they're like, oh well, there's so many servants, we don't have a record.
I sense a J.
It happens a lot on the show that this comes up. So a few episodes further into the series, Most Haunted investigate at Craigievar Castle in Aberdeenshire, Scotland. Derek identifies the spirit of Richard the Lionheart. When questioned by Yvette Fielding, he says the spirit is visiting the place and it happened maybe in the 10th century. So the captions come up on the show saying, you know, history books show no links between this building and King Richard I, aka the Lionheart, who spent little of his reign in Britain. So in fact, Richard I, Richard Lionheart, he died in 1199, and Craigievar Castle wasn't built until 1626. So that's like 500 years out. So, you know, if we're to try and believe Derek, then maybe he's saying that Richard I just visited that site which the castle is now standing upon, because there aren't records of what was on the site before the castle was built in the 17th century. So maybe we could just about get away with saying, well, even though King Richard didn't even really like hanging out in Britain at all, he was like overseas, maybe there's just about a possibility he did somehow visit that bit of Scotland when it was just like a field. And at Craigievar, Derek also identifies the presence of a depraved evil character that's got wrapped up in like the dark arts and chopping up body parts and stuff in the dungeon.
Boy.
So they're all, everyone's a bit, he's got some pretty strong claims for like the spirits that he's contacting here. So after these episodes come out towards the end of 2005, through an expose in, I think it's the Mirror newspaper, Most Haunted's parapsychologist, Dr. Kieran O'Keefe, claims the public are being deceived by showmanship and dramatics, and he reveals Derek Okora, the medium, to be a fake. Dr. O'Keefe told the newspaper that during the previous year, which is 2004, while on a shoot at Castle Leslie, County Monaghan in Ireland, something had made him a bit suspicious about Derek Okora.
Yeah.
So at this kind of haunted castle in Ireland, the story, one of the famous ghost stories of this castle is that there's a particular 400-year-old four-poster bed in the castle which has been known to levitate off the floor.
Jesus.
I think with people in it. So during the investigation, they're going around this castle. Derek walks into a room with a four-poster bed.
Oh, God.
Touches it, and he comes out with this totally accurate account of what has been happening with this levitating bed. So the ghost story that everyone at this castle knows about this bed levitates. The only problem is that Derek touched the wrong bed. So the actual four-poster bed, which people claim to have witnessed levitate, was in a different room. He just found another four-poster bed and said, this
there
one...
want to be in castles.
Yeah, I feel like this one's... Some people have had a strange experience in this bed. I'm imagining it lifting off the floor. It was the wrong bed. So, the most haunted producers say that the mediums on the team are not told anything about the places they're going or the history or information about the location. It's supposed to be secret to prevent non-genuine mediums from researching beforehand and appearing to have accurate factual knowledge. But it was becoming clear to Dr. O'Keefe that Derek was somehow getting information about the locations before arriving there, such as information on, previous residents or history, ghost haunting. So O'Keefe said that Derek's performance was kind of turning each filming session into a bit of a joke.
Because he's making it about him getting more and more extravagant with the lies. So it's look at me.
You get the impression that some of the crew and the producers,
They're fed up.
They're they can feel that Derek's a bit of a showman and the investigation just isn't really being taken seriously. So very suspicious of Derek Okora, O'Keefe devises a plan, supposedly with the support of the show's producer, to expose Derek. He kind of tests whether Derek is a genuine medium and kind of reveals whether he's lying or whether he's maybe just susceptible to being fed information, which would still make him sort of non-genuine medium. So let's go back to the Bodmin jail investigation. Before filming, Dr. O'Keefe purposely fed Derek misinformation. So he made up a fake character and story, and he got another crew member to mention within earshot of Derek a nasty South African jailer, and they left a note with the name Creed Kafer on it lying around for Derek to see. So as we know, Derek took the bait and he claimed to be possessed by a bad spirit called Creed Kafer at Bodmin jail. At Prideaux Place, Dr. O'Keefe had planted another fake dead person in advance of filming, this time a highwayman called Rick Edels. Once again, Derek took the bait and claimed to connect with the spirit of an outlaw called Rick Edels. So Dr. O'Keefe was pretty smart about the names he picked for the fake ghosts.
Those are anagrams as well.
Oh boy, you're right. He was baiting Derek with these fake ghosts because both Creed Kafer and Rick Edels are anagrams for Derek Faker and Derek Lies.
As soon as I saw the Rick Edels, I was like, that K. I love anagrams.
So at Craigievar Castle, Dr. O'Keefe plants misinformation again. He kind of went a step further this time. He plants this misinformation concerning the story of a witch and the ghost of Richard the Lionheart seen walking by a wardrobe in the castle. So Well, Derek, we know, once again took the bait, saying that he's Richard the Lionheart was there, and this like dark, depraved character chopping up body parts and being in the dark arts and stuff. Not noticing that these stories are actually Dr. O'Keefe's play on C.S. Lewis's very famous story, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. AKA frickin' Narnia. Derek.
This O'Keefe guy is next level troll.
Yeah, next level. And Derek ate it up. So after this all came out in the news, Most Haunted actually got reported to Ofcom, which is like the regulator for TV shows, I think, relating to this whole scandal with Derek Acorah. So Ofcom described the show as one where techniques are used which mean the audience is not necessarily in full possession of the facts. But luckily Ofcom ruled that it wasn't actually fraud, because they said Most Haunted is an entertainment show, not a legitimate investigation into the paranormal, and should not be taken seriously.
Yeah.
So, following the exposure in the news, the Most Haunted producers removed Derek from the team. Yvette Fielding, the dramatic presenter lady, was interviewed after Derek left, and she said that she believed Derek was a fake medium, and that she was sure he faked possessions. You know, she said, you know, we tell people everything is real, and then it turns out he was a fake, so he has to go. So after he was exposed by Dr. O'Keefe, Derek said, you know, I've worked with Dr. Kieran O'Keefe for many shows, and he's got every right to say what he says. However, it does shock and surprise me. Not only do I believe that I am a genuine medium, I live my work 24 hours a day. If I thought I wasn't a true medium, I wouldn't work as one. Derek also reportedly told a newspaper that he actually left the show because of a personality clash with Yvette Fielding, the presenter, and not because he'd been exposed as a fake. He said Yvette decided to become very egotistical, over the top and big-headed, and our friendship and everything soured. She decided when I left the show that she didn't want to talk to me anymore. There was no need for it, and it was very sad. So,
Delusional.
Most Haunted continued on without Derek, and I think they're still going.
That other medium was like, ooh.
However, from 2016, they've decided to stop using mediums on the show. As for Derek Acorah, his scandal with Most Haunted totally did not stop him. He's produced like a ton of books, he's gone on tour as a medium doing live shows, does private readings, ghost hunts, and he continues to appear on TV. He filmed like a one-off special for Living TV, which is the same channel that actually hosts Most Haunted, interestingly. So they obviously still cool with him. Called Derek Acorah's Quest for Guy Fawkes. He also did Derek Acorah's Ghost Towns, and he had like a whole documentary series just about himself. In 2009, Derek tried to contact the ghost of Michael Jackson when he appeared on Michael Jackson, The Search for His Spirit, which was voted worst TV program of the year. He also sparked controversy in 2012 after claiming to have received a psychic message from Madeleine McCann, the little girl that went missing on holiday.
Fucking asshole.
Yeah, he stated that she was dead and soon to be reincarnated. Obviously, that claim outraged a lot of people. He had to make like a public apology to her parents. Don't do that, Derek.
Don't do that.
Then recently, 2017, Derek was a contestant on Celebrity Big Brother. He actually made it to the finals. Like, everyone loved him. He was like the cute magic granddad in that lineup, and he like came out in like 4th place. Of course, they had him do some like psychic stuff, like a little seance while he's on the show. And like on one occasion, he made out that a spirit he was communicating with like flipped a coin.
Oh yeah.
But viewers on TV reckoned that they could like see that Derek had faked the stunt. He's not retired just yet, basically. He's had quite a good career post Most Haunted. So our verdict on Derek from Most Haunted. He was somehow getting information about the locations, whether someone in the crew or behind the scenes was like feeding him information, or whether Derek had found a way to like access information himself. I don't know whether Derek thought that the people around him were like dumb And he was
Yeah.
just like easily stumbling on all this, like these bits of paper left around with like ghost names and like former names of residents and stuff that, you know, people just leaving out everywhere, or whether Derek like believed that this information was being fed to him because the producers wanted to create more like sensation and entertainment, and he's just going along with it, like just thinking that this was the unspoken rule, like these people know that I'm fake as well and they're just helping me out for entertainment.
Or is everyone just covering their ass?
Exactly.
O'Keefe went on a rogue mission because he's such a skeptic. Yes, O'Keefe.
So, just on psychic mediums in general, I mean, I think mediums, true or not, definitely provide some kind of like comfort for people.
But it can go the opposite way. It's just scary.
Yeah,
I mean, they get it wrong.
Yeah, I mean, for people who are like grieving or like feel the loss of someone, or like some people get comfort from this like reassurance that there's some kind of afterlife.
Yeah.
But our advice is like, don't knowingly fake being a medium. Don't trick people. You know, you can upset people, you can hurt people. Don't go lying about how you know what happened to a missing person or like where a murder victim is buried if you don't actually know. You know, if there are, this is the worst thing, is that if there are people out there who have sensitivities or like abilities to like tap into some kind of spirit information or like connect with this like spirit energy, it's super sad that they've been given like a bad rep by the scammers.
Yeah.
A lot of the episodes I've referenced were from series 6 of Most Haunted. So I urge you to definitely watch the show if you haven't seen it before. Just at the very least, because you get to see inside some really amazing historic properties. Like, these people just basically go have like snoop around someone's house.
Yeah. At some point I'm going to have to tell the seance story, but we'll save that for some other point. That was our fucking podcast. So, I mean, hit us up on Twitter at WorldWearyPod.
Are you a skeptic? Did you lift the lid on a scamming, fraud, fake medium? Maybe you are a medium and you want to tell us.
See if you can read us.
Can you tell us the future of this podcast?
I can. At worldwearypodcast@gmail.com. Probably gonna have an Instagram at some point. It'll probably be worldwearypod with pictures and links of like James Randi and stuff like that. I just want to thank everybody for listening.